Anthony Salvatore Casso, nicknamed Gaspipe, was an American mobster and underboss of the Lucchese crime family. During his career in organized crime, he was regarded as a homicidal maniac in the Italian-American Mafia. It is believed that Casso committed dozens of murders and confessed to involvement in between 15 and 36 murders. Casso was a violent youth and a member of the infamous South Brooklyn Boys Street Gang. In 1958, he was arrested after a rumble against a rival Irish-American gang. He soon caught the eye of Christopher "Christy" Tick Furnari, a Lucchese family mobster and leader of the 19th Hole crew in Brooklyn. With Furnari's support, Casso started his career in the Mafia running a small loan sharking operation. Furnari also used Casso as muscle for his gambling and drug-dealing rackets. In 1974, at age 32, he became a made man of the Lucchese family. Casso joined Vincent Fosseri's crew that operated from 116th Street in Manhattan and from 14th Avenue in Brooklyn. Shortly after becoming a maid, Casso became close to another rising star in the family, Victor Amuzzo, and began a partnership that lasted for 2 decades. The two men committed scores of crimes, including drug trafficking, burglary, the elimination and disposal of police informants, and murder. Casso and Amuzzo were noticed for their success, and subsequently moved to the more prominent crew operated by Casso's mentor Furnari. Within Furnari's 19th Hole crew, both Casso and Amuzzo led a burglary ring known as the Bypass Gang, which included expert locksmiths, safecrackers, and experts in security alarm systems. The Bypass Gang is still suspected of committing burglaries in banks and jewelry stores throughout New York City and Long Island. Authorities estimated the Bypass Gang stole more than $100 million from safety deposit boxes and vaults during the 1970s and 1980s. When Furnari was promoted to act as the Lucchese family's consigliere, he decided to promote Casso to succeed him as capo regime of the 19th Hole crew. Casso declined, suggesting that Amuzzo be promoted instead. He subsequently became Amuzzo's trusted right hand. In December 1985, Casso was approached by capo regime Frank DeCicco regarding a planned coup in the Gambino crime family. Gambino capo regime John Gotti, whose crew had worked with Casso to conduct drug deals, and other captains, were planning to kill family boss Paul Castellano, believing that he was too weak to lead them. Gotti and DeCicco were looking for support among the other 4 families affected by the ongoing Mafia Commission trial. According to Sammy Gravano, another of Gotti's co-conspirators, DeCicco returned from the meeting saying that Casso had offered the conspirators his unconditional support. According to Casso, DeCicco alleged during their meeting that Castellano's carelessness in allowing his own house to be bugged was reason enough to kill him. Casso tried to talk DeCicco out of killing a boss without first asking for the commission's permission. Otherwise, he said, killing Castellano would be a cardinal violation of the rules and all the participants would have to be murdered by the other 4 families. Castellano's murder went ahead anyway on December 16, 1985. Casso later denounced Gotti's actions as the beginning of the end of our thing. As Casso had warned, Lucchese boss Anthony Corallo and Genovese boss Vincent Giganti decided to kill Gotti, DeCicco, and every other conspirator in Castellano's murder. Amuzzo and Casso were chosen to handle the assassinations, and were instructed to use a car bomb to try and shift suspicion to Sicilian mobsters, or Zips, related to Castellano. While New York City mafiosi had long been officially banned from using bombs due to the risk of collateral damage, Sicilian mafiosi and members of the Cleveland crime family were notorious for blowing up their targets. Amuzzo and Casso made one attempt on the lives of Gotti and DeCicco, planting a bomb in DeCicco's car when the two were scheduled to visit a social club on April 13, 1986. Gotti canceled at the last minute, and the bomb instead only killed DeCicco and injured a passenger they had mistaken for Gotti. In November 1986, Lucchese family boss Anthony Corallo sensed that the commission trial would result in a guilty verdict that would ensure the entire Lucchese leadership would die in prison. Corallo, wanting to maintain the family's half-century tradition of a seamless transfer of power, called both Casso and Amuzzo to Furnari's Staten Island home. Casso turned down the promotion to boss and instead suggested that Amuzzo become the new boss. Amuzzo formally took over the family in 1987 and Casso succeeded Furnari as consigliere. Casso later took over as underboss in 1989 after Mariano Macaluso retired. Casso had a close alliance with Russian boss Murat Balagula, who operated a multi-billion-dollar gasoline bootlegging scam in Brighton Beach. Balagula, a Soviet Jewish refugee from Odessa, had arrived in the U.S. under the Jackson-Vanik Amendment. Street tax from Balagula's organization was not only strategically shared, but also became the five family's biggest moneymaker after drug trafficking. In January 1991, Casso received an early warning from a secret law enforcement source about an upcoming federal indictment. Shortly before he and Amuso both went into hiding, Casso summoned Alphonse Darko, the capo regime of the Vario crew, to a meeting. Casso gave Darko a list of phone booth numbers and secret addresses and informed Darko that he was in charge of the Lucchese crime family until further notice. In early 1991, Amuso and Casso ordered the murder of made man and capo regime Peter Chiodo, a fellow Windows case defendant who had pleaded guilty without asking their permission. Casso assigned the murder to acting boss Alphonse Lil Al Darko. The order shocked Darko, who knew that Chiodo had been a close friend and confidant of Casso for years. On May 8, 1991, two Lucchese shooters ambushed Chiodo while he was working on a car at a gas station in Staten Island. Chiodo received 12 bullet wounds in the arms, legs, and torso, but survived the attack. Meanwhile, Alphonse Darko knew that Amuso and Casso blamed him for having failed to murder Peter Chiodo and grew certain that they were planning to kill him. By September 21, 1991, Alphonse Darko was certain that Amuso and Casso had marked him and his family for death. That afternoon, Darko telephoned the suburban Connecticut home of FBI agent Robert Marston. Darko explained that his life was in danger and that the Lucchese family had started killing the entire families of suspected informers, which had never previously been allowed. After some hesitation, Darko told Agent Marston that he and his family were in hiding at his mother's house in Long Island. Darko and his family entered witness security program. Casso's power came undone when Amuso stripped Casso of his title of underboss and declared that all Lucchese mafiosi should consider him a pariah, in effect, banishing Casso from the family. Amuso had long been suspicious of Casso's failure to use his law enforcement contacts to find out who had betrayed him, and finally concluded Casso did it himself to take control of the family. Facing the prospect of a trial at which Darko, Axaturo, and Chiodo were due to be star witnesses against him, as well as spending the rest of his life in prison, Casso reached out to FBI agent Richard Rudolph and offered to turn informant. Following his arrest in 1993, Casso became one of the highest-ranking members of the Mafia to turn informant. After taking a plea agreement, he was placed in the Witness Protection Program. In 1998, it was rescinded and Casso was dropped from the program after several infractions. Later that year, a federal judge sentenced him to 455 years in prison for racketeering, extortion, and murder. Casso died in prison custody from complications related to COVID-19 on December 15, 2020.